Hello, everybody. It's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course, I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. So, October is finally winding down, along with my series of horror recommendations that I do every single year. And since I do realize that not everyone is quite as devoted to the genre as I am, I thought a good way to close out this month would be with a very special list of recommendations. So this week, I am going to focus on horror television series and films for people who are not fans of the horror genre. So what do I mean by that? Well, uh, as exemplified by a number of series in particular that have been super duper popular in recent history, such as The Walking Dead, The Last of Us, Stranger Things, of course, there are very definitely horror series and TV shows that somehow seem to speak to a very, very wide audience. And maybe it's something about, the setting, like within Stranger Things, we definitely have that great retro vibe going on, along with just a really phenomenal storyline. But I definitely feel like a lot of people who really grew up seeing a lot of that 90 who feel a lot of nostalgia for the 80s and the 90s really gravitate towards that. Or with The Walking Dead and Last of Us, you have these really gripping interpersonal relationships. So while your overall genre definitely has that horror or scary vibe to it, it's really so much more than, your standard horror fiction. So today's recommendations all have something about them that's a little bit extra that I know I have recommended to friends who don't generally like scary films or TV, and that they've really latched onto, they've really found interesting and compelling, and hopefully you will end up feeling the same. As always, all of today's recommendations are available entirely for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card. So without any further ado, let's get to the Rex. Okay, so I briefly mentioned in our introduction a little bit about Stranger Things and how, it really has sort of grabbed global attention due to a number of factors. I mean, of course, the storyline is incredible, but you also have that nostalgia vibe. People love stories that take place in the 80s and the 90s where you can really fall into all of the culture references. You've got a really great, strong coming of age story coming out of both the younger group of kids and the older group of kids. You've got romance. You've got a ton of things thrown together in this pretty intense horror adventure story, and it all just sort of works together. Now, while Stranger Things isn't technically a recommendation, you are able to get the DVD and Blu-ray of it through CleveNet. Strongly recommend that you do if you have not seen it. But the Stranger Things TV series sort of leads me into my first actual recommendation, which is available on our Hoopla service, and that is 1991's Eerie, Indiana. So this series follows a young man named Marshall Teller. He is uprooted from his hometown in New Jersey and brought by his parents to live in this little podunk nothing city called Eerie, Indiana. It is, massively different from the life that he'd known. And in addition to being just a fish out of water situation, very weird things happen in Eerie, Indiana, and he ends up getting caught up in all of these weird occurrences. Um, so Eerie, Indiana definitely skews much, much younger. It was a network broadcast television series on NBC. And it definitely feels like very, very early 1990s standard TV show of like the film quality and everything like that. But there's really an interesting vibe to it, I think, especially with it being created in the 90s. You can absolutely have that sort of cult of nostalgia vibe going through, because there are tons of things that if you grew up in that era, especially, you will 100% recognize. But there's something about that Midwestern town, like the Anywhere USA, that I think a lot of us find really appealing, because we all know like weird things happen in small towns, and Eerie, Indiana is very aptly named in this series. So our main character of Marshall Teller is played by Omri Katz, who is probably pretty familiar to a lot of people. If you've seen Hocus Pocus, he is one of the main characters in that particular film. And he does a great job as Marshall. He is very much your fish out of water, but he plays it quite well. There are a lot of layers to his performance, and he has good chemistry with pretty much everybody that you see on screen, whether we're talking about his developing friendship with a local friend, Simon, or all of the incredibly odd human beings and not human beings that he comes across in this town. You actually get a little bit of a very soft X-Files vibe to it too, which I think is quite interesting. Um, while it is certainly not, I would say, as gripping or complex as, say, Stranger Things, it does definitely hit the spot for someone who is interested in something that feels very late 80s, early 90s. If you do happen to like sort of small town vibe horror, it's like very gothic in a lot of ways as well. Uh, this one was a lot of fun, and I remember watching it when it first aired, and rewatching it has been kind of a definite eye-opening experience. I remember thinking it was much cooler when I was a kid, but there's certain like camp aspects that I don't even think are necessarily, bad, that crop up in this. And it was just a lot of fun to watch through. There are 19 total episodes in the entire series that you get access to all of them. There's definitely a tonal shift about 2/3 of the way through the series, where I think like the creators and the writers were trying to just go for a different vibe. And it's not that the two sections of the stories don't work. It's just that there is a noticeable tone difference, and certain like actors and characters get more attention in the latter part of the series. But it's definitely one that I think is a lot of fun. It's also great if you have younger viewers around that are interested in something a little bit eerie. So, like I mentioned, a bit of a soft X-Files vibe with some camp in there, but definitely has really solid performances. You've got a lot of character actors that you'll find very familiar. John Astin makes an appearance within the second part of the series, and a number of other people besides your two young focal points. It's a lot of fun. So again, if you're looking for something that has that old school vibe with that quiet Midwestern sleepy town setting, make sure that you check out Eerie, Indiana on Hoopla. 19 episodes, definitely worth the watch. Okay, my next film recommendation is available on DVD and Blu-ray via our CleveNet service, and that is 1979's Alien. So, if you have not seen Alien, basic premise: we are in deep space on a commercial spaceship called the Nostromo. You've got a crew filled with very experienced people, including a phenomenal character called Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver. Anyway, at some point in their travels, they hear a distress call on a sort of mysterious planet. They go to investigate, and they encounter an alien life form. And from there, things just go crazy. If you haven't seen this movie, one, why not? And two, it is 100% worth the watch. I don't care if you absolutely abhor horror, if you are not a science fiction fan. There are some things within this film that are incredibly iconic to film lovers in general. So I think it's totally worth it to at least give a try. Besides that, it just has a really interesting history. This is one of those sort of perfect genre blends, I think. So it is from the brilliant mind of Ridley Scott, and it combines science fiction and horror in such a way that it is the perfect combination of those two things. From the opening scenes, there is just this incredibly creepy vibe that I think you only get from sort of deep space films. You know, There's just something so terrifying about that isolation. You are seemingly in the middle of a vast nothingness, and what are all of the horrible things that could happen. Not even talking about like alien life forms, but just like you are so small in this vastness. There are infinite number of things that could go wrong with that. So you already have this sort of weird feeling of dread from the opening scenes, and just the way that everything feels very sterile at first, and then it just sort of evolves into this like kind of organic horror. It's really creepy and marvelous in that regard. Um, so the production is fantastic, like the sound editing, the set design, and again that evolution of the set design, because we do start again with like very stark, very clean lines that in the latter parts of the film very definitely change and shift. You have exceptional actors. As I mentioned, Ripley is one of those is played by Sigourney Weaver, and it's one of those characters that I think is going to always be remembered in film history. She's this incredible, strong female lead. And within this genre, I honestly don't know too many other characters prior to her existence that had that same feeling. I really honestly don't. And as like one of those people is again who has very much been invested in this genre, it's always interesting to see how things shift and change over time. So when Alien first came out, it was did very well at the box office, but was sort of, while not panned by the critics, got definitely a sort of mixed review vibe. um People were like, oh, it's okay, but deep space and horror, whatever. People weren't like over the moon about a lot of it. If critics weren't, if fans were fans from the get-go, it was very much like one of those films that did well with the public, but critical thought was sort of like, you've seen one horror film, you've seen them all. And it wasn't until later that people really started, that like these critical thinkers and these like movers and shakers within the film industry were rewatching and thinking, you know what, there is actually something very special about this. And it's only in latter years, but we really recognized how iconic like Sigourney Weaver's Ripley is, how this particular setting really sort of is the exemplar of this kind of film. This deep space horror, science fiction. This is the film you look to find what you should do and how it can be done well and correctly. um like I said, like the whole cast full of ridiculous actors. You've got Tom Skerritt in here. You've got John Hurt. John Hurt in this movie is just amazing. You've got Yaphet Kotto. You've got Ian Holm. They're just, it's just amazing. Harry Dean Stanton is in this. Everybody is somebody, and you'll recognize them and in other films that they've done, usually not in the horror realm either, but in legitimate film. I hate that term, but they're definitely actors who are known for their acting prowess outside of genre film. And I think it really goes to show how well a well-performing cast can elevate a film as well. So Ridley Scott is just brilliant, and I love the way that he directs movies, but I think it makes it a lot easier when you have performers who are very willing to take risks with their performance, who really know their craft, and every single person within this cast is one of those people. You've got an excellent storyline that does keep you on the edge of your seat. It works for, of course, horror fans, but science fiction fans. If you like adventure, it is definitely action adventure packed, suspense there. And if you just like the ins and outs of and the intricacies of production, it's just very well done. The Alien itself is one of those that now a xenomorph, everybody knows what you're talking about as far as the look and the design of it. But at the time, people were sort of like, yeah, they didn't really care for, they were like, this isn't a really scary monster. And now, like, it's again one of those iconic visuals. So it's a film that I think, from a film history point of view, is fascinating to sort of trace and chronicle and see, how opinion can change and shift, even though the source material has not. So yeah, Alien, if you haven't seen it, if you've not watched it in a while, if you hated it the first time, if you loved it from the get-go, I definitely think it's worth a watch or a rewatch. Again, available on DVD and Blu-ray through our CleveNet service. Check out 1979's Alien. Absolutely fantastic. If you do happen to like this one, or if you happen to be more of a horror action adventure person, definitely think about checking out its sequel, Aliens, with a single S afterward. I would say that one's an even better fit for a lot of people who don't love horror but just like fun actiony films. I think you do need to watch this first one to really get where some of the character growth is coming from, but with or without it, also a bit of a recommendation. So also Aliens, available DVD, Blu-ray on CleveNet. Okay, so my next recommendation is also available on DVD and Blu-ray, and that is 2009's Zombieland. I have talked about zombie films quite a lot over the years. I only fairly recently started to enjoy them. It was not my go-to subgenre, but with 2016's Train to Busan, I really started to kind of dive in and sort of really enjoy this particular subgenre. That said, even before all of that, even when I was very much kind of poo-pooing on zombie movies, I enjoyed Zombieland. Zombieland is the perfect film for people who are more interested in funny than they are in horror, because Zombieland really is absolutely hilarious. You are dealing with a story that has a pretty typical zombie apocalyptic landscape. A virus infects the vast majority of the globe, and you're left with zombies and a handful of survivors. And we are following four particular survivors in this. Tallahassee, played by Woody Harrelson, phenomenal. Columbus, played by Jesse Eisenberg. I know I am sort of a like, give or take with Eisenberg, but he does a great job with this particular role. I think it's absolutely perfect for him. You've got Wichita, played by Emma Stone, and Little Rock, played by Abigail Breslin. And with these zombie apocalypse stories, you usually have writers who go in one of two directions. Either the very serious, dramatic route these days, like Walking Dead, Last of Us, love both of those kinds of stories. Or you have the ones that go in a completely off in left field zone, like Shaun of the Dead, Zombieland, and I think there's just something really universal about that particular road, that approaching this kind of story, which is pretty wrought with devastation, with humor. Like, the world has essentially ended, and to deal with it, we're going to laugh. And I think that's, again, got a universal appeal. Within Zombieland, you have a ton of really hilarious moments that deal with very ordinary things, like, how do you handle getting gas in a post-apocalyptic world? What if you really want, I don't know, a Twinkie? What does an amusement park look like in a post-apocalyptic world? Like, very ordinary things. And these four people had not known each other at all prior to the end of the world. And so how do you interact with people you have no connection to, no real interest outside of like survival in? It's so fascinating to me. And these four eventually sort of form a bond, like a family, and it's, amidst all of the sort of macabre humor, it's really kind of lovely and enjoyable to watch. You've got an incredible guest appearance by Bill Murray, absolutely unforgettable role, and all of these things just sort of, I think, blend together to make the kind of movie that you can show any movie fan. So even if you like really heavy, intense, gory horror, there's enough other stuff within this to enjoy. If you absolutely detest horror as a genre, there's still enough going on that you will still enjoy it. And while, zombies are really kind of dime a dozen these days, and even like humorous zombie stories are pretty common now, I think there's something particularly special about this one. Just within the chemistry from the actors, the storyline, just everything. It really, really is a great example of how to do this particular type of story very, very well. So again, available on DVD and Blu-ray, 2009 Zombieland. There is a sequel. I did not particularly enjoy it, so in my opinion, just stick with this one, but just know that that option is out there. Okay, so I'm going to try and keep this last recommendation super duper short because it's for one of those movies that's so bad it's kind of good. But I couldn't do a list of horror films for people who hate horror movies and not mention this, just because my group of friends have watched this, and we all come from very different backgrounds who like very different kinds of movies, but we all sort of bizarrely enjoy this one. It's available on DVD and Blu-ray, and it is 2023's Cocaine Bear. All you really need to know is that this movie, which is about a giant black bear who consumes a fair amount of cocaine and ends up going on this rampage in some southern forest, is that it's very loosely based on a true story. And that is the sole reason why I felt the need to watch it, because I was like, what? It is, and it's interesting because I definitely thought it would just be like this ridiculous, campy monster movie kind of thing. But it's actually like, there's a lot of like pretty intense gore scene. So like, if you like blood, guts, and gore, this one's definitely one to view. Besides that, you've actually got a pretty good team behind the film. Elizabeth Banks directed it. Jimmy Warden's the writer. It has Kerry Russell in it. O'Shea Jackson is in this. You've got Jesse Tyler Ferguson in a small role. Ray Liotta, Christoph Hivju from Game of Thrones. These are not people who don't know what they're doing. So the fact that they attach themselves to this movie very much intrigues me. Again, this is one of those films that's rather so bad it's good, but it is definitely a fun one to watch, especially with friends. If you don't mind like the kind of film where you can be very irreverent about it, this is fantastic. It's a great sort of like a gathering movie to watch. I would not say like watch it by yourself. Not because it's scary, but just because it's so ridiculous and over the top. But if you're looking for something to have on during like a small gathering of friends, this is definitely a good one that will prompt a lot of conversation. Again, so bad it's good category, but definitely worth checking out if you happen to like a lot of blood, guts, and gore along with humor in your horror. So one more time, available on DVD and Blu-ray, 2023's Cocaine Bear. Definitely a ridiculous but enjoyable watch. Okay, so those were the recommendations I had for this week's films, which feature horror movies and TV series for non-horror fans. If you have a recommendation that you think would fit that category, please comment with that below. Additionally, please feel free to share any ideas you have for themes you'd like to see us cover in the future. I love putting these lists together. October, as I've said many times, is my favorite month of the year just because I really get to dive into this genre that I've adored my entire life. And this is how you find weird things. I would strongly encourage you, if you are not a fan of any of these picks or if none of them really speaks to you, to go check out the catalogs within CleveNet, within Hoopla, within Canopy. There will be a film or TV series that you enjoy in there. Like there are thousands and thousands of options. You absolutely will find something to watch within there. As always, thank you so much for joining me. If you've made it to the end, you are fantastic. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. One more time, thank you for joining me, and hopefully I will see you next week. Bye-bye.